What's up, guys? It's Toad back again. Late as hell, late night for this NFL show. Going to be talking NFL Week 9. Only got 2 plays, and I will give some opinions on a few of the other ones. These are the only 2 that I think are strong enough, and even one of these is a bit wild, I guess, as far as the situation is concerned, but I do still like it, kind of regardless of what winds up happening with it, which I will talk about in a second. NFL last week was 1-1-1, which resulted in a loss uh, in the NFL on the Sunday. Although I wound up winning on Sunday because I had an NBA play. I think the Atlanta Hawks winning outright at Milwaukee. I think tipped the scales and gave me a win on Sunday. But NFL was 1-1-1, which I don't want to rehash it too much because I think I went over it in one of my videos. Probably the Monday morning video that I did. But Carolina, of course, picked up their first win of the season. That was nice. That was a win in that battle of the overhyped versus the underhyped rookie quarterbacks, I would say. Was kind of the tail of that game. Won on that one, and then Washington absolutely should have won. Don't want to go into it again too much. Brutal, but Washington was tied and or winning the game against the Philadelphia Eagles for most of the game. It was a terrible, terrible spot for the Eagles. It was a major sandwich spot because the Eagles have this huge game against Dallas upcoming, and they were coming off that primetime win over the Dolphins, which was kind of a statement win. Having to go to Washington, not the best spot at all, and laying a bunch of points on the road. Washington still had that 7-point lead with whatever it was. 8 minutes left in the game or something like that. And then, of course, what did they do? They gave up a tying touchdown. Then Sam Howell did what Sam Howell does. Washington's offensive line did what Washington's offensive line does and not protect the quarterback. Howell throws an interception in his own end, sets up the Eagles with the ball at the Washington 9. They score a touchdown. All of a sudden, they're winning. Then Washington's defense, which hadn't allowed a sack like all game, shockingly, because they've allowed the most in the NFL, started allowing sacks, started blowing it, but they still had a play where Washington's offense had a play that looked like it was a completed catch, which would have been a first down. On fourth down, would have extended the drive. The ball absolutely did not hit the ground. Should have been a catch. It was ruled incomplete on the field. Ron Rivera, Riverboat Ron, not really, as I said on my other video, not really a gamble in this situation because he was right, and you have to do it anyway with 2:05 left, and you still have your challenge left. This is when you're going to use it. 5 minutes before the 2 minute, or 5 seconds before the 2-minute warning. He correctly challenges it, and somehow in the booth review, it still does not get overturned, even though the commentators on that game were saying that it was definitely a catch. It did not hit the ground. Somehow, ruling on the field stands. It's still incomplete. Turnover on downs. Total bullshit. Absolutely bullshit call. Gives Philadelphia the ball at the Washington 20. So they start back-to-back drives at the 9 and the 20. Basically have to do nothing on offense, and they get 14 points out of it. So now all of a sudden, instead of Washington being up 7, now they're down 14. Like a minute and a half of game time later, basically. Absolutely ridiculous. Total bullshit. And then, at least for me, because I took the +7 on Washington, Washington got a garbage time touchdown at the end to at least push the number again. But no reason they shouldn't have not only covered, but won that game outright. Absolutely ridiculous. Just disgusting. Let's get into this week's games. Well, first, actually, I guess I'll talk about the primetime games quickly, or at least the early ones, because we do have a Thursday night game, which this is an ugly one. Tennessee at Pittsburgh. I don't know who's going to want to watch this game. It looks like they were a 3.5-point home favorite, and it's gone down kind of through the 3 to -2.5, juiced at -120. Probably we could say it's about at a 3-point favorite right now. 72% of the cash on the Titans, but 65% of the tickets. So it looks like more of the money, for some reason, is on the Titans, kind of driving the number down a little bit. I lean to the Steelers in this game. If you look at what these teams did last week, the Titans, they're in a spot where I don't know if Tannehill is injured, but the Titans started rookie quarterback in his debut last week, Will Levis, the Gene Man. No, I think it's Will Levis. He had a nice rookie debut, pretty good game, and led his team to a win, but it was against the Atlanta Falcons, and it was at home. The Falcons, not really known for being a great defensive team right now. And probably they didn't know what to expect out of Levis because there was no game film on him yet. So he had a good first game where that rookie debut situation can kind of be like an injured player theory situation where we saw the line go up on Atlanta to the point where they were like a 2.5-point road favorite there just because the rookie quarterback was going to be playing. So at that point, there's like some value on the other side, basically similar to what it would be with an injured player theory because the market is just kind of the numbers just overreacting to the fact that there's a rookie quarterback now playing. You don't know what to expect. But, of course, the team's going to kind of rally around that guy if they like him, step it up. And if the guy's been with the team and knows their system already and he's been practicing with them, it's not really that big a negative for that team. And really you're just getting value with the number moving more than it should against that team. So that's what happened with the Titans there. But now coming into a second game with Levis starting, now there is game film on him, at least one game's worth of it. So the Steelers will be able to see that and game plan for him a little bit. And not only that, but the Steelers also have a better defense than Atlanta. And the Steelers are kind of in a bounce-back situation where they didn't play well last week. They played against Jacksonville, although Jacksonville is a good team. That's kind of a big game. Not a good game for the Steelers. They lost at home, but the Steelers had kind of this weird schedule where they were out on the road, had some difficult games, some big games, then they returned home. Jacksonville beat them by a double-digit win, I believe, for Jacksonville. But now I think the Steelers remaining at home, they're kind of in like a bounce-back spot where, and with Mike Tomlin as coach, he's definitely good. He has a good record coming off of a loss. So I think the Steelers are in the better spot here. And like I said, they have the game footage on Levis. Levis making his second start, it becomes more kind of similar to like the reverse injured player theory now where the team knows they just were able to win with that quarterback. So now they might like take their foot off the gas a little bit, knowing, hey, we just won with this guy. We can like take it a little bit easier perhaps, get a little bit more like maybe overconfident or complacent with that guy now at quarterback. And you tend to see like a little bit of potential regression there as well. So, and the Titans are coming off like a decent win there. So that's a pretty big win. So now they have to face the Steelers and coming off that game. I don't know what the Titans have next after this, but Titans are kind of in more of like a letdown / like regression spot because of all those reasons I just said. Whereas the Steelers are in kind of more of a bounce back spot. And yeah, the Titans have the Buccaneers up next. So out of conference road game. So maybe not the biggest game, but all that being said, not like a hugely strong lean here, but I do lean to the Steelers in the Thursday night game for all those reasons I just said. Then we have a pretty big matchup for an overseas game here. A lot of times these Europe games tend to be ugly matchups. This one is not one, but it's also kind of bad because it's like a bad travel spot. So you get these good NFL teams and they have to go out to Germany in this one. So even a bit further than London is. Have to go out there and have this weird travel spot. So the fans in Europe might not get like the best that these teams might have to offer out there. This is Miami at Kansas City, or Miami versus Kansas City playing in Germany. The Chiefs look like they've gone down from -2.5 juiced at -120 down to -1 juiced at -119, even though it looks like 56% of the tickets, but 55% of the cash on Miami. So it looks like less of the cash than the tickets are on Miami, even though the Chiefs number has like gone down a little bit. But this might be like over the course of the week because I do have the look-aheads here. And I think I looked at the look-ahead line on this. I think it was so this is before last week's games were played. I think the Chiefs were a 3-point favorite in this game. And now all of a sudden they're like somewhere around 1 or 1.5. And that's just based off of what we saw last week for the most part, I think. So, like, why would the line have moved from the Chiefs being a field goal favorite to down to like 1? So I think there's value on the Chiefs in this one. It looks like the market is saying that there's less money than tickets on the Dolphins. And I think the Dolphins are perception-wise going to be the team that the recreational bettors are going to like more here because they have that high-flying offense with Tua and Tyreek Hill, and everybody likes that Dolphins offense. They score a ton of points. Dolphins are off of a win over the Patriots, which I don't know how impressed you can be with a win over the Patriots, but Dolphins continue to score a lot of points, scored over 30 in that game as well, whereas the Chiefs' offense has struggled. They have not looked good. And now they're coming off a loss to the Denver Broncos, which perhaps the Chiefs are like looking ahead to a bigger game here against the Dolphins. The Chiefs had already beaten the Broncos at home, even though it was kind of an ugly win, and the Broncos kind of played that close. But you can kind of excuse the Chiefs' loss to the Broncos in a way, and that maybe they just weren't totally focused on a bad Broncos team, and they had to go on the road to play the Broncos, and they were laying a lot of points on the road. So unfortunately, the Broncos have a bye this week because I would look to go against the Broncos this week after they pull off that nice big upset at home over their division rival and probably the best team in the division, the Chiefs. But because the Chiefs looked so ugly and didn't even score 10 points in that game against the Broncos, and now they're facing a Dolphins team that has a really good-looking offense that is going to get all like the public perception, basically, I would only lean to the Chiefs in this game. I think the value is going to be on the Chiefs for all the reasons that I just said. I think there's value in the number because I think the number has moved a couple of points just based off of last week's results because the Chiefs had a really ugly-looking loss and the Dolphins continue to look good offensively, and I think that's just the tale of this game. And like I said, when the Dolphins played the Eagles on that primetime game, the Dolphins, when they have these step-up games against actual good teams like the Eagles or the Bills, they have not proven anything yet, and they've lost those games. So until I see something else out of the Dolphins, I wouldn't want to be taking the Dolphins anyway. So, yeah, I would only lean to the Chiefs in the Europe game, the Germany game, Z Germans, for all of those reasons. Now, if we just keep it chronological, I guess, let's go to one of my plays, and this one is I like it, kind of regardless of what's going to wind up happening here as far as the quarterback situation is concerned. But it is definitely ugly, but I think it's a really bad spot for the Cleveland Browns. I'm on the Arizona Cardinals +8, a really ugly looking one here, but we're getting a lot of points here. If we look at the money here, it looks like it's gone down from the Browns being a 9-point favorite, although juiced at -105, down to the 8. But they have 87% of the tickets, but only 86% of the cash on the Browns. So it looks like the Browns are the public team getting more of the money, but less of the money than the tickets. So this, I would say, is reverse line movement coming in. So some of the bigger bets, I think this is indicating that they are on the Arizona Cardinals. You also see the total has gone down from 39.5 down to 37, with 59% of the tickets on the over, but 77% of the money on the under. So it looks like there's pretty significant money driving this down on the under. And that means that taking the underdog here might be a good idea because in a game with a total that's this low and expected to be a low-scoring game, total down to 37 now, all those points are just worth more in a game where the total is expected to be really low. So I like the idea of taking the points here, just looking at the market here, but we can talk about the situation in a second. The Browns are also more of a defensive team than an offensive team, so laying a ton of points with the Browns is not really the best situation to have the Browns, and the Browns are much better taking them as an underdog or playing them in a game where the line is like close to a pick 'em or something, as they are a much better defensive team than offensive team. Not the type of team you want to be laying a ton of points with. And, of course, we know they have injury concerns. So the Browns, I'll talk about that first, I guess. The Browns do have some injury concerns here. Of course, Nick Chubb, we know, is out for the season, but the Browns have still been playing okay without him. They got picked up Kareem Hunt again. Their running game has been okay. Ford has done okay. So we know that, like in the NFL, you can replace your running back more easily than you can replace your quarterback, at least. But with the quarterback situation, I like this play either way for Arizona, and I don't know if the number is going to move that much. Although if you want to wait to see what's going to happen with the Browns quarterback situation, it's possible the line will go up a little bit depending on whether or not Deshaun Watson is going to play, because right now he is questionable, and he has missed the last couple of games with an injury for the Browns. So if he is ruled in, and it seems like I to me it seems like it's more likely that he plays than not right now because I think he has looked okay so far this week in their practices, even though he might be limited a little bit in practice. I think he's probably going to play, but I don't know if the line is actually reflecting that. So if you like Arizona and you want to wait to see if it even might go up, potentially reaching even 10 if Watson is ruled in. I don't know if that's going to actually happen, but maybe you could do that because I don't think it's going to drop below the like through the 7.5 down to the 7 or whatever. I don't think it's going to go that far, but I don't really know. But if Deshaun Watson does come back, I still like Arizona because then you're in the reverse injured player theory where if that does actually like move the line up a little bit, I think that just means you're going to get more value on the underdog in Arizona here because the line tends to overreact when that star player comes back a little bit and the team, which the team has been playing without him. They've gotten used to playing without him, and now they have to deal with regaining that chemistry with him back on the team again. And maybe they've gotten like a little bit, like I said with the Tennessee situation, maybe they've gotten a little bit like complacent or a little bit confident in playing without him. So now if that star player comes back, they might like ease up a little bit. But all that aside, so that's one thing. So I think if Watson comes back, I think that is the situation. Then Cleveland would be in like the reverse injured player theory. And if anything, the line might go up a little bit and there might just be more value in taking the underdog here. So I think that's okay. I like Arizona, whether that's the situation or not. And if Watson doesn't play, then Cleveland just kind of stays with the same lineup they've been using. And I still like Arizona here because the situation that Cleveland is in is not good. In my opinion. So what did Cleveland do? What did we see? They played some pretty crazy games. So they had that win over the 49ers, dealing the 49ers their first loss, which is a big win for Cleveland. And then I went against Cleveland the next week, and the Colts did cover against them, but that was still like kind of a crazy, high effort, high scoring game that went to the wire. So it was a game where Cleveland did not really suffer like a huge letdown from that win over the 49ers, really, although thankfully I did still win the bet on the Colts, and I think I probably should have won it more easily because the Colts were winning near the end there. So another kind of game where Cleveland stepped up and they wound up winning the game. Then they had a second straight game on the road and had to go out west last week, and they were in a battle out there too against the Seahawks, even though Deshaun Watson hasn't been playing. This was with P.J. Walker again. The Browns have been their defense has been good for the most part, even though it wasn't very good against the Colts, really. Their defense has been has been keeping them in these games. P.J. Walker has done enough to keep them playing well, and they had a back-and-forth game, another big effort game against the Seahawks out west there, and lost that game kind of right near the end on, I believe, a final Seahawks touchdown right near the end there. A tough way to lose that game. That's kind of a big game, even though it's an out-of-conference road game. They put in another max effort, tough game. Now they come home, so they have to change time zones again, coming back home off of another hard-fought game to play the lowly Arizona Cardinals, who I don't think anybody's going to be really paying attention to. And then who do they have next? The Baltimore Ravens and then the Pittsburgh Steelers. So huge division rivalry games with the two teams that are ahead of them in the division right now up next. So that's like a look-ahead spot too. So this is basically a sandwich spot for Cleveland, I would say. Coming off that big game out west, having to travel back home to face the Cardinals, and then having the Ravens up next, which is a big game, big divisional game, bigger game than this game is. So it's possible Cleveland might overlook the Cardinals a bit. And like I said, they're a team that's a better defensive team than offensive team. So laying a huge amount of points in a situation like this and being a more defensive team, it's not great for Cleveland. It's much better for Arizona here, the situation that Arizona is in. And Arizona, what type of situation are they in? Well, yeah, they also are having to travel east, switching time zones to Cleveland, even though it's a little bit less, slightly less dramatic. People are also going to see, I guess, that they played the Seahawks 2 weeks ago and lost at the Seahawks by 10, whereas Cleveland put up more of a fight against them. So I don't know if recreational guys are going to do like that syllogistic thing again there and say, well, we know that Arizona is the better team because they played better at the Seahawks. Or sorry, we know that Cleveland is the better team because they played better at the Seahawks than Arizona did. But everybody just knows Cleveland's the better team anyway. Nobody wants any part of Arizona here. Arizona's a one-win team. They're just ugly. They can't score. Nobody wants Arizona anyway. So even regardless of if anybody like does that comparison syllogistic thing with that Seahawks common opponent there, I think either way, it doesn't really matter. Either way, I think the Browns are just going to be overvalued here. They're the public team. There's not going to be value to be had on the Browns. But Arizona, so it looks like they did have kind of a tough game in their last game over the weekend at home against the Ravens. But they were losing that game by more than that. And kind of backdoored the cover there at the end. The game was already pretty much decided when I think Arizona scored the last maybe 9 or 10 points of that game. So the game was pretty much over at that point already, and I think they already knew it. So I don't know if it wasn't really like that much of like a huge effort the whole way there, really. But when you're a one-win team, it's not like you're going to be able to like you're not going to be able to afford to be like unfocused. And if anything, maybe leaving home and getting out of there and going on the road might help you like refocus a little bit and maybe break this losing streak that you're on. It's kind of crazy that Arizona's one win was against the Dallas Cowboys, which is really wild. But they haven't really had like that easy a schedule either. If you look, these games that they played against, they've all like they played the 49ers, Bengals, the Rams aren't that bad. The Seahawks are good. The Ravens are good. Those are all against pretty good teams. So if anything, maybe Arizona's a little bit undervalued. And the other thing that we have going on in this situation, like I said, there's a lot of weird situations with the quarterbacks going on here. Arizona just traded Josh Dobbs to the Vikings. So now he's not going to play anymore. So in comes, so Kyler Murray is about to come back, but it looks pretty definitive that he's not playing this week and that he'll probably come back next week. So that means that their quarterback this week is going to be, I don't even know this guy's name. They have some rookie quarterback who's going to be making his debut. What is his name even? I don't even know. Clayton Tune is his name. He's going to be the quarterback for Arizona this week. And I actually think that gives Arizona a little bit of additional value here because there's like no game film on him. So sort of like with Levis for Tennessee, when you have no game film on a guy, yet you don't really know what to expect out of their offense. You don't really know what you're going to see. So I think that's a slight additional advantage to Arizona here and maybe additional disadvantage for Cleveland because they're not going to really know how to game prep for Tune necessarily. And I don't know if it's possible that they maybe even were like potentially game prepping a little bit for Murray potentially coming back because it wasn't really, I don't even know if it's totally definitive now that it's not going to be Murray, even though it seems highly unlikely that it would be him, but I don't know if it's totally definitive. So I don't know if Cleveland has like that in their mind too, and they're having to prep for potentially having to face either of these quarterbacks. I don't know, but that situation I think is a little bit of a disadvantage for Cleveland. And if Tune is in there, there's like no game film on him in the NFL yet. They might not know what to expect out of him. I think that gives Arizona the slight like additional edge there as far as the situation is concerned. And yeah, I think that's maybe that's all I have to say about that. There was something else that I thought I had back in my mind there. I don't know what's going on with Arizona's running back situation, if James Conner is supposed to come back or not, because he's been on IR. This might be the first week he's eligible to come back, although I have no idea if he is or not. But of course, that would help Arizona's offense if he does. But at any rate, yeah, I think that's probably it that I have to say about this one. I like Arizona for all those reasons. That was very long-winded just to talk about that one game. Arizona +8, baby. And the other game I'm going to be talking about, one other game, which is one of the primetime games, is the Buffalo Bills. They're in late night, Sunday night. I like the Bills +2 or +2.5, whatever you can get here. I don't know if it's actually hit the 3 anywhere. Maybe there were some 3s out there very briefly at some books, and they got like picked up really quickly just because it's a key number. But I like the Bills. If you can get, obviously just get the best number that you can if you're going to play it. 2 or 2.5, I still think is fine with the Bills. And I think the look ahead in this game was the Bills favored by 1. So why that was 1 week ago before last week's results. So why, based on 1 week's results, does the line shift from the Bills being a 1-point favorite to the Bengals being like a 2.5-point favorite or 2-point favorite? We'll talk about that in a second, but that look ahead means that there's probably an overreaction, just like I said with the Dolphins Chiefs game. It looks like there's been an overreaction in the market just based on 1 week's results, and you don't want to overreact that much in the NFL, man, to what you just saw last to 1 week's results. 1 week doesn't mean that much. A team is never as good as they look in their best game, and they're never as bad as they look in their worst. So overreacting is not good. You want to stay steady, man. Remain steady when you're betting week to week in the NFL like this. But in the market here, it does look like the Bengals. So you can see here, actually, they've flipped from +1 to -2.5, and that +1 was the look ahead. So before last week's results, the Bengals were +1, but now they're -2.5 just based off of 1 week's results. And they have 61% of the cash and 60% of the tickets. I don't know if I totally buy that the Bengals have more of the money than the tickets. I'm not sure if we might see that adjust a little bit to a point where we might see the Bills actually getting more of the money, because I do think that it is the situational play that is to be had here. And why do I think that? Well, we can talk about that now. Why did this line shift from the Bills being a 1-point favorite on the road to being a 2.5-point underdog now, all based off of last week's results? What did we see? Well, the Bengals went out to the West Coast and they beat the San Francisco 49ers and beat them by 2 touchdowns, man. So even though this is a big game against the Bills, two of the top teams are two big teams in the AFC. That's a big win to be coming off of, and I think that's the way that the Bengals looked in that game against the 49ers, so dominant against a team that people still see as potentially maybe even the best team in the NFL, even though they've now lost 3 games in a row. That's still a big win that makes Cincinnati look really good now. It makes Cincinnati look dominant, and they've won 3 games in a row now. But now they come back home from that, so shifting time zones again. So not the greatest travel spot, really. Come back, and they have to face the Buffalo Bills. And what else is going into this spot? The Bills might have multiple different kind of large motivational angles here, because the Bills, they're going to remember that everybody remembers the Bengals are the team that knocked them out of the playoffs last year. The Bengals are the team that ended the Bills season. And I always say in these professional sports, revenge doesn't mean that much. But if it matters at all, it's going to be when it's the team that ended your season entirely last year. And that's what happened. The Bills, as everybody remembers, there was a lot of snow going on in that game. The Bills were a home favorite against Cincinnati in the playoffs last year, and Cincinnati went in and handled them. And it was kind of an embarrassing loss for the Bills, even though the Bengals were a good team. The way that the Bills lost that game and lost it very decisively is just crazy. The Bills, because of that, they're going to have this game circled. They're going to want that revenge. They're going to want to exact their revenge against the Bengals, who ended their season last year. So I think that's additional motivation for the Bills there. I think that adds to the situation. So I think the Bengals looked too good last week. They're in that bad travel spot, coming back, possibly in even a letdown situation, even though it's not, you're going to overlook the Bills, a big name, one of the best teams in the AFC in primetime. You're not really going to overlook them, but value-wise, the Bengals could only be overvalued here, coming off that 49ers game, and we've seen the line in this game shift 3 or 3.5 points just based off of those results last week. So, yeah, that's what we got going on there, and maybe even the other slight motivation. I'm looking at him right here, right now, Damar Hamlin, that situation. Not that I want to talk about that again, but the last time the Bills were at Cincinnati, it was that game, the Damar Hamlin game, that wound up not being finished. So this might add some even more emotional motivation for the Bills here, because they remember that happening the last time they were here in Cincinnati. I think the Bills thought that game kind of screwed them over as far as the I guess kind of both teams could have had an argument that it kind of screwed them over. As far as the actually, I don't know which team had a stronger argument in that aspect, but – regardless, the Bills, this is going to be, I think, a more emotional, motivational game for the Bills here, because they remember that happening the last time they were here in Cincinnati. I think the Bills thought that game kind of screwed them over as far as the I guess kind of both teams could have had an argument that it kind of screwed them over. As far as the regardless, the Bills, this is going to be motivational spot for the Bills here because of that than it would be for Cincinnati, because the Bills, remember last time they were there in Cincinnati, that's what happened. They're going to remember it. So not only is this the team that ended your season in your house in the playoffs, but this is also the team where when you went to their house last, you had that major emotional situation there that happened, that major incident that happened there. So all of that is going to cause the Bills to have this game circled. And the other aspect of this is, why did this line shift so much based on 1 week's results? Well, not only did the Bengals look probably better than they are last week, going out and handling San Francisco on the road, but Buffalo didn't look good on primetime on Thursday. Everybody saw it. They only beat the Buccaneers by 6, but if you saw that game, really, Buffalo was pretty much handling them. Buffalo dominated that game, just couldn't really cash in on the opportunities that they had, and they were winning that game by 14, and the game should have ended a 14-point game near the end there, but multiple fourth down penalties, as I think I mentioned in one of my other videos, extended that Buccaneers drive where they wound up getting that touchdown. And the touchdown was again on a fourth down play where it was like this tipped pass that was caught by Mike Evans in the end zone. So really, the end result there looked closer than the game actually was. But that's going to make the recreational bettors think less of Buffalo. They're going to look at these at last week's results, and I think this is why the line has moved so much in the market, and I think it's overreacting because Buffalo didn't look good in that final result against the Buccaneers. They looked kind of ugly there, and prior to that, people saw them lose to the Patriots, and prior to that, people saw them, I mean, look, 4 ugly games in a row, actually. They haven't really looked good since they beat the Dolphins. They lost in NFL Europe to Jacksonville, although that was a bad spot. As I mentioned, it was coming off that huge win over the Dolphins. Then they looked ugly again in primetime in that really ugly game against the Giants. Then in a situation where they probably should have bounced back, they lost in New England, even though it looked like they had made the comeback and it looked like Buffalo was going to win that game. They had taken the lead there. They gave it back and wound up losing that game. So that was ugly too. And then they looked kind of ugly again against the Buccaneers. So the public is going to kind of be off of Buffalo at this point, I would say, in this and the market has reacted to it as well. So Buffalo has looked ugly, and the Buccaneers have just been winning. They've won, or sorry, the Buccaneers, the Cincinnati Bengals have just been winning. They've won those 3 straight games. Like I said, went out to San Francisco. They won that game at San Francisco, which looks a lot better than what Buffalo did. But Buffalo, because they played on Thursday, they have extra time off to prepare for this because it was the Thursday game. So that's another edge for Buffalo. So all these situational angles, all that motivation that I talked about, the fact that I think everything, like the line, everything in the market is overreacting to what they saw last and putting more value on the Bills, and the fact that Buffalo has more time off to prepare for this, all of that is in favor of Buffalo. So I like Buffalo a lot in this game. I think the situation lines up nicely for the Bills. And the other thing I will point out, which is very bizarre, it's the first time this has ever happened, and it's the case with the Cincinnati Bengals here, that a team's first 4 wins of the season were all against the one division that they play in the other conference. So right. So the Bengals have 4 wins on the season, and all of them are against the single division in the NFC that they get to play. They swept that division. They already played all 4 teams in that division and beat them all: the Rams, Cardinals, Seahawks, and 49ers. So the Bengals have 0 wins this year so far against the AFC. As crazy as that little tidbit is there, that stat. They're 0-3 against the AFC. So put into that what you will. I don't know if that matters that much, but it is kind of bizarre. That just kind of adds to how bizarre this situation really is here. Just everything about the situation seems bizarre to me. But anyway, yeah, when it all comes down to it, like I said, I like the Bills taking the points, taking the 2 points. Let's do it. So those 2 plays again, Arizona +8 and Buffalo +2. Don't have that much more than that going on here. I was close to saying that I wanted to play the Patriots. So you can see here, Washington has 66% of the tickets and 58% of the cash. And the Patriots have reverse line moved and gone up from -2 through the -3 to basically where it's 3.5 now. So it's gone through that key number. So I don't know how much value there is left to be had on the Patriots if you missed like the numbers, if it was out there at lower than 3. But I think the situation is bad for the Commanders, the football team, the Redskins. They're coming off, of course. I don't want to even talk about it again, but I just mentioned it again. They're coming off that huge game against the Eagles where they probably should have won the game. They wound up losing in the end. I don't know how you turn around and play again off a loss like that. I think it's going to be kind of a hangover spot, and you have to go on the road to play an out-of-conference opponent, and it's a 2-6 or whatever their record is, 2-5, 2-6 Patriots team. I don't know how much left the Washington's going to have in the tank there, or how much focus they're going to have on the Patriots out-of-conference team with a bad record on the road. I would only look to the Patriots here, and I think the public obviously doesn't want to take them. The market looks like it's moving in the Patriots' direction against where the public and where the majority of the money is even. So it looks like the bigger bets are driving it up on the Patriots. So the market is indicating on the Patriots, and I think that coincides with the situation. I think it's a bad hangover spot for Washington. And the Patriots are coming off a loss, so they're potentially in like a bounce back spot, which coming off a loss under Belichick, they have been pretty good, even though this year they haven't really been. But even so, I think it's a bad spot for Washington. So that one almost was a play of mine. I would lean to New England in that one. Cowboys Eagles is a big game, but I don't know if I have that much to say about the game situationally. Really, the Cowboys are coming off a blowout win over the Rams, which I thought was kind of a bad spot. So they look better than the Eagles. Excuse me. Cowboys coming off a blowout win. But the Eagles coming off that game that I just mentioned yet again where they struggled against Washington. So I think if anything, and as you can see here, it looks like more of the public is kind of on the Cowboys here with 52% of the tickets on the Cowboys, but 63% of the money on the Eagles at home, even though it looks like it's gone down from 3.5 to 3. But this looks like the cash discrepancy in the market is kind of indicating on the Eagles here. And I think it's because of what we just saw last, where the Eagles looked pretty ugly, almost losing to Washington. And the Cowboys handled LA, handled the Rams. But now, now, the teams we could see regression back to the mean here. But the other thing that I think is going to affect what the recreational guys are going to do here is the fact that the Eagles are laying points here. I think people are going to look at what they saw last and think, hey, the Cowboys looked way better than the Eagles last week, and we're getting 3 points here and want to take the Cowboys there, thinking that that's value there. But again, you can't really base anything off of 1 week's results. Everything's an individual situation. I think the Eagles are, if anything, are the slightly better team here. So I think they should be getting slightly more than home field edge here. Where it looks like they're getting like almost like just around just home field here. So I would lean to the Eagles in that one because I think we're getting a little bit of value there just because of what we saw last, where the Cowboys looked very dominant against the Rams and the Eagles did not look that great against Washington. So people are going to think that there's value on the Cowboys taking the points. I tend to look the other way with that one. So probably the biggest game as far as like the teams that are the big names and whatever. And it could be an NFC playoff preview. So I figured I'd comment on that. I lean to the Eagles in that one. And then Monday night, yet again, we get more ugliness. Another ugly game here with the Chargers at the Jets. It looks like the Chargers have gone up from -1.5 to -3.5. And some of that, again, might be like this 1.5 might have been the look ahead. So some of this might be overreaction to what we just saw last, even though it looks like 68% of the cash and 65% of the tickets are on the Chargers. I don't know if that cash discrepancy that's on the Chargers side is really going to stay that way, because I think that the only value to be had here is going to be on the Jets, because you know that the Chargers are going to be the public team. They have the better offense. The public, the recreational guys like the offense. They saw the Chargers on primetime last week, and it's, the Chargers are back. They just put up a ton of points in primetime. People saw their offense clicking, but that was against the Bears, who have a really bad defense. So I don't know how much weight you can really put into that. Whereas the Jets played another ugly game, like the Jets tend to do, where they were losing most of the game against the Giants, and then tied it, sent it into overtime, and actually won the game on a field goal in overtime in a 13-10 game. So very ugly. Nobody's going to want the Jets in this game, really. So again, I'm surprised that this says the cash discrepancy is on the Chargers. It's obvious why the ticket percentage is on the Chargers, because they have the offense. Everybody likes the offense. Nobody's going to want the Jets. It almost looks too easy to take the Chargers at laying just around a field goal here, because their offense is so much better than the Jets. But Monday night, primetime, home underdogs, even though I've mentioned it a few times, that used to be like real money. Like it was almost like you could just blindly play it, like back in the day, like a decade ago or so. But the books have kind of caught up to that and learned how to adjust to that. But I still tend to like to look to the home underdogs in prime time. They tend to have some value in a lot of spots, and I think this is a situation where that is the case, where the Chargers are the team that's going to be the team that people think are the much better team because they have the much better offense. There's only going to be value to be had on the ugly home underdog here, and the Jets are getting points, and they have the better defense than the Chargers do. Even though the Chargers have the better offense, getting points with the better defense, that's usually where the value is, and they're the home team. The Chargers, like I said, they're coming off looking really good on primetime and scoring a lot of points, and the Jets just continue to play ugly football. So the only value to be had here would be on the Jets, so that's the way I would lean there. And I think that's going to do it, man. I'm Tower Gang Toad. This is another really long video, because of course it is. That's all I do, man, is do long videos at night and stay up until 4 a.m., 40-something minutes, maybe even more, 50-something on the college, and this one's going 40-something just for 3 plays in college and 2 in the NFL, just because I like to talk about some of these other games. And in college, there are a couple of games that I'm probably going to mention on Saturday morning that I didn't even talk about. One of them, one of the biggest games of the week that I just completely forgot to talk about, but I will do that Saturday morning probably. I might mention those. I'm Tower Gang Toad. You can follow me on Twitter for my political shit posting, etc., and some sports related stuff. Follow the Tower Gang podcast, the most offensive comedy podcast on the planet. If you like true, pure, raw comedy and a bunch of bros just hanging out, shooting the shit, and trying to make each other laugh and saying the most crude shit that you can possibly imagine, that's Tower Gang. We live stream every Wednesday night. YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey. Put the episodes up on Spotify afterwards, on all the audio platforms, and you can support us on Locals at towergang.locals.com. So you can find me there, and I'll mention this hat yet again, the Milk Sommelier hat. If you like all the things I just mentioned, political shit posting, humor, football, and big boobs, then where I got this hat is the flapper.net store, FLAPPR, Flapper. You can find them on Twitter, and you can go find their merch at their store. They have a blog. They do all the things I just said. They talk about politics, humor, sports. They talk about all those things, and titties. We all like all those things, man. We are men. We're bros. You like to bro out. Give Flapper a follow. You might like some of their content. That's going to do it. Once again, I'm Tower Gang Toad. Not only am I better off dead, but I am dead. Peace.